Alright, I want to show you how I made my Vigor tweaks. It's pretty simple. It's not that hard. Creation kit and scripting seem intimidating at first, and, the ins and outs of scripting are pretty intimidating. But to make simple tweaks to mods and their scripts is not very hard, and you can do some pretty crazy stuff with the base mod layout. So launching creation kit. Vigor. This is already my tweaked version, but I'll show you everything. Long ass load time as usual. Okay, so we're going to go to all here. The two modules of Vigor that I tweaked are fatigue and stamina actions. So I'm going to go to fatigue first. So the first thing I did was, this is the spell fatigue, by the way, spell. This was already here. Decrease movement speed, decrease movement speed, decrease movement speed. All I did was increase the magnitude of the debuff by double for each one. So basically for this one, between 50 and 25% stamina, there's a 20% movement speed debuff. For this one, from 0.1% to, 1% to 25%, there's a 40% debuff. Normally it would be 20. And finally, from 0 to 1%, there's a 60% debuff. This when you bottom out. There's a base pause between an action and stamina actually regenerating. It's like 2 seconds or so. So basically there's 2 seconds where you'll be moving 60% slower if you let yourself bottom out. But there's also, okay, this. You can do this several ways, but the way the author Alexandre, I believe, is his name. The author of Vigor did this was he made the base regeneration rate pretty damn low, and then he added bonuses if you have above a certain amount of stamina. So what I did was just made those two bonuses active if you're over 1%, equal to or over 1%. So basically, unless you bottom out, you pretty much don't have any stamina regeneration debuff, besides obviously heavy armor, light armor, and during certain actions like casting. But moving on, I reduced Magicka Regeneration and misspelled the actual name of it, but it doesn't matter. Reduced Magicka Regeneration greater than or equal to 10%, and greater than or equal to 25%. There's 25 and then 50, and they stack unless you add a condition that doesn't let them go below a certain percent. So in total, it's 75% Magicka Regeneration if you're below 10% Magicka. Furthermore, I added 2 new conditions using the same magic effect that Vigor created, and this just has different conditions than the stamina ones. It reduces movement speed. I call this disorientation when you have equal to or lower than 50% Magicka and greater than 25%. It's 20%. And if you have equal to or lower than 25% Magicka, you have a 60% movement speed debuff. So I had to make these two, my own magic effects for these two, but it's pretty simple. I'll go into them later, but the conditions are if you have below... So I set a condition, so your destruction power mod can't go below 50%. And I set a condition that if your Magicka is equal to or below 50%, there's a 25% magnitude decrease in your destruction power mod. Destruction power mod is just the damage output of your destruction spells. And then there's heal power, which is the same sort of thing, same sort of setup. Basically, restoration spells just heal for less when you're below a certain percent of Magicka. In this case, I believe it's 50% and 25%. Actually, what I'm discovering here is I might have done the 50%, 50%. So right here I'm witnessing a mistake I made. It should be 50%. And oh, never mind. Now, see, this is how I did it. Here was my logic for this. The debuffs stack, but if you have below 50% Magicka, you get 25% less destruction damage essentially. If you have below 50% stamina, you also get a 25% debuff, and the max you can have is 50% debuff. And the same thing applies for, hopefully, heal power. Yep, stamina and Magicka. I got confused because I thought it would be 50% and 25%. I forgot how I set this up, but that's fine. Now, you could add it in for other schools of magic. You would just have to do, say, alteration power mod as the condition. Well, let me show you the actual... Let me get the name first. Ill, decrease, resto damage. Okay. Resto damage, ironic, but name doesn't really matter, does it? So for this, just give it a title. The ID title is different. It can be the same, but This is the name of it, and this is the ID name of it. So the effect archetype is peak value modifier, casting type constant effect, delivery self, magic skill none, 0 for maximum skill level, and the association item is the important bit here. So there's restoration power mod. Let me see if I can find alteration power mod. Alteration power mod, we're using restoration power mod though. So basically, if you want to reduce the power of any spell school, you use that. You have to make a separate magic effect for each one. The logic behind using Resto and Destruction is they're two schools that pretty much outshine, if you have points in them, as well as another school, other spells that have mostly utility effects. And even if you did do Alteration Power Mod, you'd simply be reducing the duration of most spells, so most utility spells would be mostly just as powerful, but they'd last less long. So it's a bigger hit to Restoration and Destruction anyway. But anyway, for the flags, detrimental, recover as in you can get out of it when you go above that percent. No duration, no hit event, no area. It's not an area effect. It's just the player. And hide in UI. You don't want it to, spam messages or anything. The casting sound level is loud, but it's probably because it doesn't have an FX set to it. But normally you'd want silent. You don't want to hear every time you get this debuff on you. And it's pretty much the same thing with Destruction. The only thing that differs is Destruction Power Mod is the association item. This is also important. Make sure it scales off magnitude. So if you wanted to make your own similar debuff effect, you could just go into one of the already made Vigor magic effects, and all you really need to do is change the names, and it will keep the other ones. So if I want to decrease alteration power, decrease alteration power, all I need to do, because it's all set up already for this, is choose Alteration Power Mod. So see, create new form. So it's not going to delete the old one, you're just going to make a new form. And there it is. So if you actually want it to be used by Vigor, you would go to Fatigue, and you go back to the spell, and you create a new effect, and search ale, decrease alteration power right here. So to add a condition, you do new condition. This is when this kicks in, but basically you want to, let's say it's 20%. You're decreasing the power by 20% when a certain condition is met. Yes to all. So get actor value percent. There's a lot of different ones that you can play around with. So it's going to get the actor value as a percentage of what? What are we going to use here? You can use health. You can use Magicka, seems a logical choice. Magicka, we'll just use this for now. Keep it on subject because it's set up. This spell is set up to work like that. And see, it's equals. That means it's only going to be active if it's this exact percentage. So you write percentage as decimal point. So 0.50 is 50%. But we don't want this. This makes very little sense. So you would do, if it's less than or equal to 50%. So 50 and below, this is going to be active. this is going to be active. And then you hit OK. And now we have alteration power. We have a debuff to alteration power. Now let's go to stamina actions. So, previously, before I edited this, one of these conditions had this stamina regen debuff. It was 100%, and the condition was, I believe, is moving or is running, and I simply removed that. So now there's no debuff if you're doing that. For casting, is casting, here we go. It was, I don't know what, I think it was 75% or something, but I put it to 200% so that when you're casting, you cannot regenerate stamina at all. And this I added. Stamina drain cast. This is a condition now to... So what I needed to do in order to achieve this was pretty simple. It involved scripting, but still it was pretty simple. So, stamina, hopefully I remember the name. Stamina drain cast. So this is my own one. Once again, I must have went to something like attack or jump and kept the basic framework, but I had to add my own scripts, but they were just edited versions of the jump or attack script. Right now I can't even edit source because, hold on, but I can do it because the author of Vigor was nice enough to include the source scripts. So what I did for casting spells, let me pull this up. Creation kit, animation event. So here's a list of all animation events. And personally I chose these two for the casting events. MRH, which is right hand spellfire event, and MLH, left hand spellfire event. And basically, see where it says registration, register for animation event. Bow draw is for the bow thing. I just copied this, pasted it into a new script. In fact, I'll just do this now to show you guys, so it's pretty simple. Control C, add, new script, just name it test script. Extends his active magic effect, just keep it the same. Okay, so now we have test script. When you want to, write in the script, you go to edit source. I believe I copied. Yes, okay. Did I copy the name? Yeah. Obviously, you have your own name and extends, which is the same, but just you can only have one, so keep that. So register, see, the event is on effect start, which is part of active magic effect, but that doesn't really matter right now. I'm not giving you a total scripting tutorial. The animation name is bow draw. So we want to do, let's say, MRH spellfire event. Control V for pasting. So it's registering for this event, and then it's going to be event on animation event, and if the event is, oh, we're using this once again, MRH Spellfire event. So for my actual script, I used if statements to drain a different amount of stamina depending on drain a different amount of stamina depending on how much magicka you had remaining. But for simplicity's sake, we're just going to do something like this. So it says get target actor damage actor value, stamina, that's the attribute, and we are going to do, say, 5 for simplicity's sake. This means every time this event fires, MRH Spellfire event, every time you cast a spell from your right hand, 5 stamina is drained. Okay? So we could do file, save, compilation succeeded. Now, what I do is, because I'm not the best scripter in the world, is I just make a separate script for the left hand. So we'll do LH test script. And, well, before I forget, an important thing to do here is edit properties, or you can just hit properties there. The thing is, it's not using, so we don't have any properties. Let me just be a good, clean scripter here, or script stealer in this case, and get rid of this, because we're not using this. But if you wanted to, you could make your own, formula, and then you use it as a property, and you enter it in instead of 5, and then you'd have to fill the property, which would just be, no, let me save first. You just hit autofill all, and then OK. But anyway, let's go back to this and be lazy. Okay, I forgot a very important thing. Good thing I went back. But MRH Spellfire event, hopefully it's still, yes, okay. So this is just closing off this script. So now we go here, forgetting again, absent-minded as always. Control-C to copy, since there's no right-click. Edit source. Once again, I copied the title lazily, so we'll just delete that when we get, say, right here. We're gonna want to name this. Okay, it has a name. Obviously, you want a different name. But anyway, since I already know that the only difference between these two events is left hand and right hand, I'm just going to change the R's for L's. L, L. So you cast from the left hand, and it's going to drain 5 stamina as well. And if you dual cast, both of these scripts will fire. And that means that it's going to be 10 on every cast. Okay, so we made... So now if this were a new... Let's just give it a new name. This is a new fact. L cast stamina drain spells drain stamina. Create new form. We got a new form. Okay, so now we go back to stamina actions. The spell. Okay, and then you hit, in the effects window, you hit new. Then you find the effect you made with a script attached. Ale cast stamina drain. Okay. Okay. Now it's there. Now you hit OK. And since I don't want to mess with my mod at all, I'm not actually going to press it, but obviously file, save, and then escape. You don't even need to escape. You can just play with Creation Kit open if you wanted to, but I mean, for resources sake, I am going to close it. No. For me, I'm not saving it. Okay, and that's how I made my Vigor tweaks. Hopefully that will help you when you want to tweak a mod of your choice.